I'm Lori Jones, and this is StrategyCast, where smart marketers and bold business thinkers share the plays behind brand breakthroughs. Most marketers are losing deals before they even start because their value proposition is wrong. What worked 5 years ago won't work today. Markets are fragmented, buyers are different, and a one-size-fits-all value approach to messaging is dead. Today, global marketing expert Jocelyn Johnson is pulling back the curtain on how brands are building value that actually connects. If you want to stop wasting budget and start driving results, you need to hear what Jocelyn shares next.
A competitive edge starts with strategy, and strategy starts with knowing how to develop one. StrategyCast is a leading marketing podcast that serves up strategic insights, trends, and tips to help separate your business from the pack. Tune in weekly as host Lori Jones interviews bold marketing leaders who have priceless wisdom and are willing to share. Each episode explores cutting-edge approaches that have proven instrumental in transforming brands into industry trailblazers.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh, like you are this crazy global marketer. You've got such an incredible background. GE for many, many years of your career, Girl Scouts. By the way, I'm
Yes.
with a senior scout.
Okay.
And just incredible things, right? Tell us a little bit more about your background and where you are now.
So I am the Chief Marketing Officer currently for the American Bar Association, or ABA as we call it. And my journey into marketing has been beautifully nonlinear. I've had the privilege of working across incredible sectors, and from healthcare to industrial systems to global professional services, working at iconic brands like British Telecom, Girl Scouts of the USA, and now the ABA, not to mention General Electric, which was where the core of my career has been spent. So what's unique about my path is that I'm also a Six Sigma Master Black Belt. So I'm certified in Six Sigma. And that means I bring process-oriented, data-driven approach to marketing, and it's grounded in operational excellence. And so this combination of creative marketing with rigorous analytical thinking has shaped how I approach value proposition development. And my marketing career really crystallizes around one core realization, regardless of whether you're selling medical devices, appliances, telecom services, or Girl Scout cookies. The fundamental challenge is the same. You need to clearly communicate why customers should change what they're doing today and why they should choose your organization over other alternatives.
Yeah, I know. I love what you've just talked about there. And as you were, just in sharing those insights, I heard this years and years and years ago that, our marketing's job ultimately helps reduce product cost through advertising. People don't look at it that way. If there were, there wasn't marketing, the average washer and dryer would cost 20 times what the price is labeled on the show floor. And all of that background, all your global experience, the Six Sigma, all of that really helps connect the dots for the internal teams. But, we need to pat ourselves on our back as well, because it's all about bringing, price down to market.
Yes, we need to change the vernacular so that we're talking about marketing as an investment to help you with those cost cutting instead of it's a cost itself.
Yeah, I agree. It's very short-sighted. And if I had $1 every time an incredible marketer like you told me that, I think we'd all be rich.
Yes.
So you've shaped your belief in marketing through this leadership vision that you've always held. And it's obvious because of these incredible roles that you've had and the respect that you have among your peers. How does that really shape, from your point of view, business success?
It shapes business success depending upon the individual and the leader and the leadership that you bring to the table. My career has taken me through what I call like a full spectrum of human need. I mentioned the healthcare technology that literally helps save people's lives, to the industrial system and keeping the infrastructures running, to professional services that help organizations grow, and now legal services that protect people's rights and livelihoods. Each sector has taught me something critical. Healthcare taught me the importance of evidence-based messaging. You can't just make claims, you need proof. Industrial systems showed me how to communicate complex technical value to diverse stakeholders. Same at GE Healthcare, being able to provide value propositions in different countries. Healthcare is everywhere. And
Yeah.
so we were everywhere. And we had to make sure that we were thinking about the person that was going to be making that decision, and that was who you were writing the value proposition for. Sure, there may also be some people that are influencers within that organization that you need to make sure they get their own value proposition. But at the end of the day, there's a decision maker. And as a business leader, we needed to help change the vernacular, the way that we were speaking and who we were speaking to.
Jocelyn is going to share her secret to really the magic behind value props in just a second. Before we get there, though, I'm interested. We all start out in marketing, and, I know I've been doing this 37 years now, which I can't believe. And when I met with New York Life, as one of my financial planning tools very early on, I told my Alex that I was going to be retiring in 25 years. And, all those things just go out the door. But the other thing I said to myself was, wouldn't it be cool to actually teach in a college setting? In your situation, what you've done, I think, is really cool, because you've gone from, enterprise business to nonprofit. And what an incredible, feeling to be able to round out such incredible experience in the nonprofit world. What are the similarities and differences that you've experienced between the two now?
Well, I really love what you said at the opening about one size fitting all, because that is a myth.
Yeah.
And this is where the myth really breaks down. Working with Girl Scouts of the USA, my first nonprofit organization for work, was after so many years of working for-profit environments. It was eye-opening for me. The same framework principles, though, do apply, but the value articulation is completely different. So in the for-profit markets, you're speaking about just ROI. That's all your decision making, and the competitive differentiation and the shareholder value. Your language focuses on efficiency gains, cost reductions, and revenue growth. And don't get me wrong, in nonprofits also, I'm seeing that, we're all about keeping the cost down and being more efficient, but you're addressing the mission alignment far more in the nonprofits, the community impact that you have, the stewardship accountability, the same service positioned entirely differently, focusing on mission fulfillment rather than strictly ROI and stock prices.
Right.
So the experience has taught me that effective value propositions require what I call contextual translation. And that's maintaining the same core value while adapting the articulation to what each market cares about most.
Yeah. Hence, the fact that you can't push out a message to market anymore with just one value prop.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I love about our agency and the ethos here is marketers love frameworks, right? We
Mhm.
love process.
We do.
And I think the best way to look at those sort of things are as guardrails. And if you, as a marketer, firmly believe that, no, you can only have one value prop, that's fine. But we're here to share with you today about the need for many more, because human nature is changing so much. The way we go to market is changing so much. Look at how AI search is changing how we now even message things. So we have to be adaptable in a
Yes.
big way there.
Yes. I've seen companies create beautiful, well-researched value propositions that worked perfectly in their home market. then wonder why it's failing internationally or with different customer segments. The core value might be the same, but the articulation needs to be adapted. You've got to have several in your pocket and make sure that you know who it is that you're talking to. What is of value to that individual?
So when did this epiphany happen for you, throughout your tenure in marketing?
I would say in my first CMO role at GE, when I was the services CMO, I had a $2 billion revenue organization that I was responsible for the marketing. And we partnered with our market research team to make sure that we understood the different individuals that would be making the decision and helping to influence.
Right.
And we came up with a value drivers framework that we were able to roll out to our organization. We actually did an internal campaign first, and then we went external. So everyone within the organization knew about this campaign, knew what it was we were trying to do, the changes we were trying to make. We trained our salespeople so that they knew, okay, it's great that you're buddies with that clinician, but that clinician's not making the decision. We need to help you with how you're going to speak to the CFO or the CEO of the healthcare system that you're going to, because that's who's going to make the final decision. And we need to make sure that you arm that clinician that you're buddies with so that they can help be an influencer to make that selection of GE.
I think that's an incredible example of how that perception shifts. How do you then implement that across buyer personas to make sure that you're educating the team on ultimately the key behaviors that someone really cares about when they're out selling to them?
Well, I had the good fortune of an incredible team when I moved to my first global role there at GE Healthcare. And the team itself was made up of individuals that were experts in product lines as well as experts in countries.
Mm.
And so together we developed what our framework would be.
Right.
And we actually had a full book of how we were going to roll it out, how it was different depending upon if you were working with the product area versus the country area and where those intersected. So we had experts on the team that we were able to create this framework. And then we took the time to train everyone on here's how this works. And here's what your part is. And, here are the processes for how we will roll this out. And it's still being used today. I still stay in touch with my colleagues, my former colleagues at GE, and they're still running with that play, and it's making the difference.
How does an ICP fit into the mix in that kind of a situation?
Well, same core benefit, better healthcare delivery in our case, but completely different value articulation based on what that ICP cares about most.
Right.
Decision makers changed for us while I was at the healthcare service industry because the dollars became bigger and responsibility for decisions on those dollars changes. And the decision makers became influencers, and their vernacular, for the salesperson needed to change.
Yeah.
They needed to change so that they could make multi-million-dollar deals. And we were fortunate. We had our first major multi-year, multi-million-dollar year deal, and it made Wall Street Journal news. So it was a fantastic way to demonstrate that we have a different way that we are rolling this out. We use those wins as stories, success stories for us to share with the naysayers that were like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. And it continues to be used today because of that.
That's incredible. I think there's a tendency for product specs to be used as the value prop. Why do you think this misunderstanding is so common? And how do you overcome it when you're really, as a marketer, I think one of our biggest roles is internal education, right? So how do you overcome that?
It's one of my biggest frustrations. I regularly see organizations use what I call techs and specs. And they'll say our product is 99% uptime instead of you'll never lose revenue due to system failures.
There you go.
What
Big.
a difference,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I think this happens because it's easier to talk about what you built as a product owner. And that's easier than why it matters. So
Right.
product teams are naturally focused on the capabilities and the specifications. They're proud of what they've built, and they should be proud of what they built. But our customers don't need the features.
Right.
They buy for the outcomes.
Yeah.
The other issue is that many organizations develop value propositions after the products are already made. That was another area that we focused on while I was at healthcare. And it's completely backwards. You
Yeah.
should be using the customer validated value proposition to guide product development decisions for the future,
Yeah.
not the other way around.
So you're bringing forward mindset shifts that just marketers need to make as well. What additional advice do you have for marketers to try to instill that internally and, quite frankly, with their own approach?
Well, first, stop treating value propositions as marketing exercises.
Yeah.
Business strategy foundations that should drive product development, pricing, and messaging decisions.
Mhm.
Second, embrace the complexity of multi-market, multi-persona environments. You need a framework that maintains consistency while enabling adaptation. Third, become obsessed with customer validation. Too many marketers are launching programs without rigorous customer research. And you need that in order to confirm that their value propositions actually resonate with the target audience.
Right.
Finally, think systematically about the entire customer journey. Different stakeholders may encounter your value proposition at different touch points, and you need to be consistent across all of those touch points.
Yeah, I think consistency is one of the areas that people really forget about. It's just they don't forget about it, but it's not managed well.
Right. It's easy
And
to
it is. I mean, because, if we capture the number of ad hoc requests we have on a given day and, the account manager or CMO may not be involved in those, I mean, that's really where it begins to, I think, unravel. But
it,
having a control mechanism in place to make sure it doesn't is key.
yes,
Yeah.
absolutely agree.
So let's walk through next the key steps you've used to create value propositions. And I think you're going to give us an example of how you did that at GE.
Sure. So at GE Healthcare, we developed what I now call 6 elements framework. And it was for credibly addressing customer problems better than anyone else. So the framework has 3 pillars. The first pillar is customer understanding. Who is your target market? Who's your target customer? Why do they have specific problems? What benefit do they need? Because your customer can't always tell you what those problems are. You've got to get to know them. Second is the organization story.
Mhm.
So, what's your theme and differentiator? What are the reasons customers should believe you? And third is the competitor lens. How do your competitors deliver against the same insight, the same benefit? The formula is simple. It's target customer plus insight plus benefit plus differentiator equals your high level value proposition.
Yeah.
Now, we used to spend 2 to 3 weeks on deep customer research, and then another 2 to 3 weeks on competitive analysis, and then 3 to 4 weeks developing and testing. I'll say that one more time, testing
Yeah.
different value articulations. So for a complete value proposition, we're talking 8 to 12 weeks if you do it right.
Yeah. Why do so many value props fit within the sea of sameness? There is nothing, I mean, differentiation is one thing, but really the value prop needs to create distinction. And still, they're done wrong.
Correct. The research is often skipped
Mm.
because it is very time consuming. It's expensive too, depending on, who you're working with or what type of team you have. And often it reveals uncomfortable truths, let's call it that, about your own assumptions. Too often we think we know the customer better than themselves, but it's absolutely critical because without it, you're essentially guessing at what a customer values.
Right.
And I've seen organizations spend millions of dollars developing products based on internal assumptions about the customer's needs, only to discover through research and customer that the customer had completely different priorities. The research investment seems expensive until you compare it to the cost of a failed product launch.
Yeah.
Rigorous research also gives you the evidence and proof points you need to support your value proposition claims. So when you say 83% of customers in our research confirmed this outcome was their top priority, you have credible foundation for your value proposition.
Yeah, you really do. And let's face facts, perception is reality. And all too often, what we see is that the you might have a great product or great service, but the
Mm-hmm.
marketing perception about that is completely the customer's perception. The value perception is
Right.
totally different for
Right.
a litany of reasons. But alignment is actually one of the biggest areas that we see ourselves stepping into with brands that have been in market for a while, and they don't understand why they keep on missing the revenue targets.
Right. And this is, to me, this is where the art of value proposition development really shines.
Right.
Differentiation isn't always about having a fundamentally different product.
Mhm.
It's about delivering superior outcomes in ways that matter most to your customers.
Right.
Specific differentiation comes from approach. It's your service model.
Mhm.
It's your integration capabilities. It's your evidence base.
Right.
And while I was at GE, we might have had similar imaging technology as our competitors, but our differentiation often came from our service network, that
Right.
service group that I was responsible for. Our data analytics capabilities that we had and our proven customer outcomes in specific clinical areas. These were key to identify what I call asymmetric advantages. So, areas where you can deliver disproportionate value relative to your competitors, even if the core product seems similar.
It's so interesting. Insurance, I think, is like one of the
Mhm.
most, I mean, you're
That's a
selling
great
it
example.
is, I mean, you're selling like peace of mind, right?
Mhm.
That's all you're selling, and everyone's pricing is probably down to the penny similar. Um,
It is.
everything about insurance, there's no difference about it. But one of the strategies that they've taken is obviously, brand character approach. So
Yes.
how can we cut through the clutter? Aflac Duck, flow with Progressive. How can we create through the clutter to create an experience that someone is going to feel a little bit better about? Because when they get the comparison up there, there's no
Yes.
difference.
Right. So that's when storytelling comes into play.
Exactly.
Yes. Storytelling transforms abstract value propositions into memorable, relatable narratives. So, all of those insurance companies that you just mentioned, you remember the characters and the stories that they're telling you as you go through the different ads that you see. But it's not just about being creative, it's about creating what I call evidence based stories
Mhm.
that combine emotional connection with logical proof. So, a good value proposition story follows a simple structure. Here's a customer like you. Here's a problem they faced. Here's how they solved it. And here's the measurable outcome they achieved.
Yeah.
Story makes the value proposition tangible and believable. And the story also needs to be reputable across your organization. So your sales team, your customer service, and even product development should be able to tell a consistent version of your value story.
Right.
Keep it simple and provide training before your organization launches that product, then you'll have a solid story throughout the organization. It makes it so much stronger.
I agree. And I think the best told stories are those that the reader, the viewer, the listener put
Yeah.
themselves into the scenario that's being defined and they visualize themselves doing A, or they visualize their marketing campaign achieving X, whatever it
Correct.
might be, so that they really feel they've got that sense of belonging. And quite frankly, I can do this, or better yet, I need this, or, I can't live without it.
Correct.
Back to the purse I just bought. But, I mean, that's really what happens with great storytelling.
It is.
So once the value prop is built, well, actually, let's go back for a second. Testing and
Okay.
validating is key, right?
It
And
is.
if we go back to insurance, they just didn't throw the duck out and say, here we go, let's fly with it, no pun intended.
Right.
They really, really did analyze, test and scale, refine, and then ultimately launch.
Right. Validation should always happen first, and it happens in phases. So, first, there's qualitative research with the target audience to understand if your value proposition resonates and addresses their actual priorities. Then, the quantitative validation to confirm the insights hold across your target market. I also recommend testing your value proposition with internal stakeholders, sales teams, customer service, product development to ensure that it's believable and actionable from an operational perspective. The validation process should answer three questions. First, does this value proposition address a real customer problem? Second, is your solution actually differentiated? And then third, can we deliver on value we're promising?
Yeah, I love it. And all those things are such great questions. And if you're answering no to any of them,
Stop.
yeah. And, it's actually at that stage, it's such a good idea to take a look back at that original research that
Correct.
you did regarding customer and
Correct.
validate it against those key points. So once you've got that value prop built, making sure that all the teams internally, there are a multitude of them, including HR and customer service and sales and inside sales, whatever it might be, that they're totally aligned. How do you teach teams to use it well?
Well, sales enablement was always a top priority for me as a marketer in any part of the organization, any type of organization. So the sales enablement is where many value propositions go to die. You need to translate your strategic value proposition into practical sales tools. So, conversation starters, handling, and proof points, and customer stories. So, we used to run through scenarios with our sales teams as we were doing the training. It was part of the training.
Right.
Most importantly, when you train your internal teams, you have to talk about the why behind the value proposition, not just the what, the product itself. They need to make sure they understand the customer research that's been done, the competitive landscape, and the evidence supporting your claims. You also need to make sure you're creating what I call the value conversation guide. So it could be one page sales sheets if you want to help them to adapt to the core value propositions and the different types of customer situations that they might run into with regards to the decision makers.
This is, to me, it's the smartest, the most important part of marketing is making sure that this piece is right. Because if it isn't, it can cost a company millions and millions of dollars. And you've got a powerful story while you were at GE where you stopped something in its tracks and it ultimately
Yes.
saved the company millions of dollars.
Yes. So for us, it was a defining moment. We had had a couple of wins with positive value proposition, product launches, and training the sales team. But we hadn't had this particular case happen. And so when we were able to highlight it, it was an even larger win. We had a product that was technically excellent. It had strong internal support and was getting ready to launch and go into production. But when we conducted some rigorous customer research, and we did it very quickly because we had rolled out our whole training campaign, and this one had kind of missed the window, but we went ahead and did a very quick tiger team and pulled together a group and made this happen. What we found was that the customers didn't actually perceive the value that we thought they would, and they were not willing to pay any higher price point for what we had created. So the research revealed that while our product solved a real problem, the customers had already developed workarounds and they were comfortable with the workarounds and had no intentions of changing.
Wow.
So the switching costs, both financial and operational, was higher than the perceived benefit of our solution. So we stopped the launch and we saved millions of dollars in marketing spend and production costs and opportunity costs. More importantly, we freed up those resources to focus on products that could deliver genuine customer value.
Yeah.
It's critical. It was critical that we did that. We stopped and recognized the fact that we had saved dollars and saved our reputation, and we celebrated it.
Well, you should. I mean, that takes a lot of guts. I mean, you're that far along in the process, and to come back and say, we can't do it, we shouldn't do it, it's
Right.
not going to resonate, it's not going to be meaningful, it won't get purchased. So take us back to that moment in time, that conversation, everyone's at the table, and then you ultimately have to ladder that up to a, division president or the CEO in this case, maybe.
Right.
Take us
Right.
back to that moment in time.
Well, the good news was as we were going through our process, we included members from the product team
Yeah.
and the sales team. So the recognition of this bad news was made by everyone together. So it was, instead of bad news, we said, no, let's make this valuable intelligence.
Right.
This is us being smarter. We did the research, and the research revealed to us that our assumptions were wrong.
Yeah.
And that's not failure, it's a success of our process.
Right.
So we learned something critical before we spent millions of dollars, a doomed launch, bad press, bad, just bad reputation. I always tell my teams that the goal of customer research isn't to validate our assumptions, it's to understand reality.
Yeah.
But sometimes reality doesn't match our assumptions, and it's incredibly valuable information. So creating a psychological safety net is crucial.
Yeah.
Teams need to know that they're not going to be punished for bringing forward research that challenges conventional thinking or leadership preferences.
Yeah. So what advice do you have for our younger listeners today who might be, I mean, they're having many, many aha moments as they're listening to this conversation. I do know that. But what advice do you have for them on navigating a difficult conversation that they know they need to have internally?
Always lead with the data.
Mm.
Use the data and use the customer evidence. When you have rigorous research supporting your recommendations, it's much harder for internal stakeholders to dismiss your insights based on personal preferences or assumptions. And it doesn't matter how many years you've been working or how many people you know. With the data, that's how you need to frame the discussions. You need to frame them around business outcomes, not marketing preferences. And instead of saying, I think this value proposition is better, you should say, customer research shows this value proposition increases purchase intent by 40%.
Mhm.
Also, involve other stakeholders in the research. Make sure that it is a collective process. When product teams or leadership participate in those customer interviews, they hear the insights for themselves. They hear it firsthand, and they become advocates for the customer validated value propositions.
That's just wonderful, Jocelyn. Um, I want to ask you this question because I think it's really important. You are so seasoned. And you've got so much wisdom that you've shared.
A nice way of saying I'm old. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. So, how has this experience really influenced the leader that you are today, and maybe even the style that you're now embarking and deploying in some of the, in your new role with ABA?
Well, yeah, I've learned to be better at asking the uncomfortable questions early in the process. As a Six Sigma Master Black Belt, I trained to challenge assumptions and to dig into root causes. But I used to wait until I had what I consider to be enough data to feel confident in my conclusions. Now I ask the tough questions at the beginning, like, what if the customer doesn't actually want this?
Yeah,
What if our differentiation isn't as strong as we think it is? Or what if the value proposition doesn't resonate in other markets?
right.
So this shift has made a measurable difference in the project success rates and time to market. Instead of discovering problems late in the development process, we identify and address them early when the changes are less expensive and more impactful. That
Yeah,
wonderful story that I told about the stopping just before the launch, wouldn't it have been better if we had stopped even sooner? It also made me more effective leader because my teams knew that I was focused on finding the right answer,
yeah.
not just validating our own assumptions. And this helps to create an environment where people feel safe. They feel safe when they're bringing forward insights, and they might challenge our direction. That's fine. It ultimately leads to a better business outcome. And
It
the key
absolutely
is
does.
asking these questions from a place of curiosity and positioning them that way and positioning them as customer advocacy,
Yeah.
not skepticism or negativity. And then when teams understand that tough questions lead to better results, they become part of the solution
Yeah.
rather than obstacles to overcome.
Well, I think it would be so cool to work with you. Like everyone listening today is
We can make that happen.
yeah, yeah. Everyone listening today is like, I need a boss like Jocelyn. No, it's just so many incredible pieces of wisdom that you've shared today, not to make us old. Uh, but truly, everything is rooted in strategy, which is the core ethos of why we get together and talk with people like you, Jocelyn. It all relates back to that strategy. And you and I love mentoring. We love just really helping younger people become
Yeah.
smarter. And we both know that strategy taught young is a way to really instill leadership down the road. We launched the Better At series this year to help marketers sharpen their everyday skills that really make a big difference, like listening, collaborating. You just mentioned curiosity. You might
Yeah.
mention it again.
Yes.
What is one thing that you've learned to be better at that's made a measurable difference in how you lead, work, and show up in your role?
The one thing that I've learned to be better at is my approach to the curiosity.
Mm,
So, quite often when I would ask those questions up front, the harder questions, it would be taken as something that someone needed to defend.
yeah.
If you make it more of, I'm trying to learn here. So help me out. I'm not understanding this part. And if someone can help you understand an area that you think is perhaps off, but they help you understand it, they may also point out, oh, but you know what? That doesn't really make sense. Or we've been doing that even though it hasn't worked. And just allowing for others to make those expressions, to allow for that space and not always be the one talking. Listening is just as important, if not more important, than the talking when it comes to mentoring and when it comes to trying to come to better solutions. Whatever team I'm on, I definitely am always team, like right now I'm team ABA. Before I was Team Girl Scouts. Well, I'll always be Team Girl Scouts because I'm a lifetime Girl Scout.
So will
But
I.
but and I'll always be, I still have stock in GE. I'm Team GE. So wherever I am, I'm for that team winning.
Yeah.
At ABA, I'm for us delivering on the mission that we have set. So it is very clear to your peers and your leadership. That is one of the things that I think I've learned to do more of, is just make it clear. I'm in this for us to win,
Yeah.
and give a platform, a space for people to be open and to share.
I love it. You've been a real gift today. What is the best way for our audience to get in touch with you?
LinkedIn is probably my most busy platform. So you can see what we're doing here at the ABA, some of the work that we're doing in the communities and around the globe. LinkedIn is the best way. And my handle is Joy to Be Me.
I love it. And it's the best way to get in touch with me as well. My handle is Lori Sartorius Jones. Definitely not as creative as Jocelyn's. Jocelyn Johnson, thank you so much for your appearance on StrategyCast.
Thank you.
That's a wrap. Thanks for joining us on today's show. We hope your strategic brains are spinning with new ideas and bold inspiration that will elevate your strategies and marketing know-how.